Hello, everyone, and very warm welcome to the webinar on how to harden your systems and reduce vulnerabilities. My name is Sharan Riker. I'm the product manager at Chef. I'm specifically responsible for compliance and container security solutions. And with me today, I have Tim Smith. Tim, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. Hey, everybody. I'm Tim Smith. I'm the product manager for Chef Infra. And since we're talking a little bit about our combination of infra and compliance, you're going to get a little bit of both of us, and we'll talk about kind of how that all comes together.
Awesome. Thank you, Tim. So with that, let's move on to what we have in terms of an agenda, what we want to cover today. We'll try to cover what system hardening is all about, and why it's really so critical for enterprises. We'll also kind of generally deep dive into the policy as code approach that Chef has put together, and learn more about how you can codify your policies and achieve your hardening and security needs. And finally, we'll take up any questions that you may have. So let me start with what really is system hardening and why it is so important. So in very simple terms, let's say if you need a physical protection, you would bring in video cameras, you would probably install motion detectors, and so on. Likewise, a lot of IT and cybersecurity professionals, they rely on system hardening to configure the systems in such a way that malicious actors won't be able to gain access and exploit the system. To really understand why system hardening is so important, let's go back to 2017. This is where one of the biggest ransomware attack happened. Basically, there was a malware called WannaCry, and which encrypted files and requested the end participants for a certain amount of Bitcoin to decrypt those files. And this attack was basically due to a vulnerability which was exposed in Windows, and it really impacted more than 2,300 computers across the world. In fact, Microsoft had released a patch a few months back before the attack, but many organizations did not detect this risk, and they did not remediate it on time with the system hardening process, and this led to close to a $4 billion in losses. Now today, the situation is in fact even worse. And if we have to go back to the survey, which has been put together by cybersecurity ventures, enterprises will fall victim to a ransomware attack every 11 seconds. And this is actually down from 14 seconds, which used to happen in 2019. This really shows why it's so critical for enterprises to have a system hardening in place. And this is a problem which just doesn't exist for the cloud alone. It's a problem which actually generally, this is not a problem which happens for on-premise alone. It's a problem which is well existing within the cloud devices also. So even on cloud, if you consider, while the cloud provider is really responsible for the security of the cloud, it's the enterprises who are, kind of more responsible for the security in the cloud. And if you really fail to configure your environments correctly, it can lead to attacks. According to a 2020 research study, which was conducted by Global Intelligence for IDC, security misconfigurations or lack of system hardening, they were one of the top security concerns that were indicated by the top 300 CISOs who participated in the survey. And based on the Gartner report, through 2025, at least 99% of the cloud security failures will be the customer's fault. So basically, it will be a result of the customer misconfigurations, customer mistakes, and the customer's mismanagement of their end systems. So let's really try to understand about the complexity of the system hardening. So if you have a very few set of devices, then it's not a very difficult task to harden those systems. But as the devices and as the number of devices within your environment grows, it becomes very difficult to assess, visualize, and remediate that particular environment. And it's very possible that the system can actually drift out of the compliance and your attack surface can get expanded. So everything from unsecured ports to redundant programs to multiple root accounts to unmonitored guest access, all of this can actually generally add to security vulnerabilities. And for any organization to really gather the data on all of their systems and to kind of configure them correctly. That's a lot of a manual effort. And even if there is a little bit of a mistake, then all the time and the manual effort will all be wasted. So one of the ways engineering teams can actually generally avoid this by automating the whole process. That is basically automating the whole process of system hardening. Now, even though organizations can automate the whole process of system hardening, these configurations may actually generally change based on every new version of an asset or every new cloud service. There are software systems wherein the vendors actually release a newer version every quarter. And so it becomes very difficult for organizations to keep up that. And they'll have to constantly write the updated script or constantly update their, kind of testing frameworks to keep these devices in proper configuration. So hence, it really makes sense for a lot of these enterprises to adopt industry accepted frameworks and benchmarks. CIS, or so-called the Center for Internet Security Standard, as well as DISA, which is the Defense Information System Agency. Both of them, they have been leading the effort in making hardening process more understandable and very easier to adopt. Both CIS and STIG, they have frameworks which apply across operating systems, application servers, like AWS, Azure, and GCP. In fact, these benchmarks also align very closely with.
Hey, Sharon, we're getting a drop in your audio. Maybe you want to turn your camera off. Yep, we see you. Looks like we lost the share.
I'm sorry about the interruption there. So as I was mentioning, as I was mentioning, both CIS as well as the STIG, they have a bunch of frameworks which they have actually.
So it looks like we're still having some audio problems. Sharon, I'm not sure if they're there. I can go ahead and share the deck also if we need to. I don't know if you want to try turning your camera off. There we go. We just can't hear you now.
Yeah.
There you go.
Cool. Sure. Thank you. Sorry about the interruption there. So let me move on and let's really try to understand how Chef comes into the play. Now, specifications, as I mentioned, which really comes from CIS and STIG benchmarks, they're usually written in PDF or they're written in Excel format, basically in a non-programmatic way. So what Chef Compliance really does is through our policy-based approach, it allows you to replace the the lengthy PDF documents that you have with programmatic tests that can be actually shared across our compliance teams, security teams, and DevOps teams. So both CIs as well as the STIG benchmarks are well integrated into the Chef compliance module. And in fact, Chef has been awarded the CI security software certification for the CIS benchmarks. We also have a dedicated team that utilizes our Chef auditing language, which is Chef Inspect, to create content specific to the CIS and STIG benchmarks. And we also keep them updated as and when new benchmarks are released. Chef also utilizes a security automation protocol compliant scanning engine, which is one of the well-known scanning engine to monitor your target systems against the CI's baseline. Apart from that, through Chef Automate, we also provide you with a single pane of glass wherein you can obtain all of your CIs and STIG baselines, and you are also able to see whether the target systems meet the industry specifications. Currently, we do have around 70 plus benchmarks across applications, operating systems, servers, and cloud providers. So let me move on to understand, a little bit more about Chef's approach to system hardening. So basically, with our approach, what you get is you get a standard set of benchmarks from CIs and STIG as part of the Chef Automate. And these are basically the Chef curated premium content, which are mapped to the CIs and STIG benchmarks. Now, you can actually customize a lot of these benchmarks as they are applicable to your organizations using our policy as code approach. You can also skip controls, which you feel may not be appropriate for your enterprise. You can actually, kind of do a kind of a temporary exception to some of the, kind of policies for a certain period of time. And using both the custom policies as well as the waivers, you can actually create a baseline that you want to test your organizations against. Now, by running these particular baseline profiles through Chef Automate on the target system at a very scheduled basis, you get to access the current configuration state. And for those checks which are failed, we either provide you with steps which are necessary for you to correct any misconfigurations, or you can leverage the remediation cookbooks that we provide to remediate your configuration automatically and then move into a trusted state. From Chef Automate, you can rerun your tests after you have done the remediation. You can really gently validate what is the degree that your system has been hardened. And once you've realized, or once you're satisfied with the security posture of your target system, you can also use data feed to export the result from Automate and view it in external applications like ServiceNow, Splunk. And from there, you can actually take it to the third party for audits. So what you get from Chef is basically you get a complete cycle to ensure your systems are securely hardened. So just a very quick run on the benefits that Chef Compliance will provide. So as I mentioned, Chef Compliance provides you with ready-to-use certified premium content which are aligned to CI's benchmark and STIG. You get automated, customizable, and very less resource-intensive method of system hardening. Through the remediation cookbooks, you can remediate your system and you can get a continuous compliance wherein your assets are always in compliance with CIs and STIG benchmarks. Chef Compliance also has the extensibility and flexibility, so you can actually customize your baseline with our policy as code approach, based on your organization needs. And you can also kind of extend your results into any of the third party seamlessly. Overall, what you get is, you can also ensure that the hardened systems are now working more efficiently with improved performance, because now you have actually created an optimal configuration and you have removed a lot of unnecessary services. So with that, let me move on to one of our customer success stories. So Hardening is one of a leading cybersecurity firm, and they leveraged our premium content for CIs and STIG, and they were able to meet their PCI and DSS compliance consistently. As I mentioned, a lot of the controls within the CIs and the STIG are mapped to some of the industry-specific regulations, such as PCI DSS. What Hardening could also do was they could really accelerate their audit process. They could reduce their PCI-related vulnerabilities. And so eventually what this all meant was they could deploy their PCI solutions in a matter of minutes and pretty much achieved a zero data loss over a 5-year time period. So with that, let me move on to a consolidated list of all of our CIs and STIG benchmarks that we support. We support CIs and STIG across a bunch of operating systems such as Amazon Linux, Red Hat, Ubuntu, and so on. We also support a bunch of applications like Apache Tomcat, SharePoint and Microsoft Exchange, a number of databases like SQL Server, Oracle, PostgreSQL, and so on. And we also support the leading cloud providers, AWS, GCP, and Azure, as well as we also are looking into the container space, and we have a support for the CI's content there as well. So with that, I'll hand over to Tim to walk us through Chef's policy-based approach. Tim, all yours.
All right. Let me just share my screen real quick. All right, folks, so let's talk a little bit about policy as code and kind of how this comes into play. We're talking about compliance and security and all that fun stuff. Really, the issue that we're kind of at right now in our industry is we have a whole bunch of siloed teams that are working in isolation. We have compliance teams on one side here, we have security teams, and we have DevOps teams. We did a fantastic job years ago with infrastructure as code in getting that silo broken down between those dev teams and those ops teams, but we didn't really go far enough, right? We still have a lot of silos, and the problem that we run into there is every business now, especially every enterprise, has a security and a compliance requirement. Internal security rules their business defines, and then some sort of compliance issue that they have to meet. Some of the ones that Sharon went over, we need to meet CIS rules, we need to meet DISA STIG rules, we have PCI, we have SOX, we have whatnot. And all those teams kind of block each other, right? The dev ops teams have something they're ready to take to production, but they can't take it to production because it needs to go through the compliance team, needs to go through the security team. These are really manual processes, and these keep our businesses from being high velocity teams, from being high performing teams. And what we want to do is kind of bring some of those same learnings that we got from the original infrastructure as code movement, and we want to really unblock these teams. We want to bring them into a single pipeline and allow them to collaborate. We're obviously going to do that with Chef. We're going to tell you a little bit about how we do that with policy as code, and how this allows those teams to kind of remove a bunch of those manual blockers that they had before to enable them to be high performing teams. How we do that is with our Chef policy-based DevSecOps automation architecture. If you're familiar with Chef Infra, this might look a little bit familiar. This is a very similar way to how data currently flows through a Chef Infra setup. And that's ideal. We don't want to reinvent the wheel here. We're trying to give an iterative approach where we can add in compliance and security. We can bring those teams into the existing process we have and make it really easy for teams to adopt some of these new practices, bringing security and compliance into the existing infrastructure they already have, the existing workflows, CI systems, and whatnot. This all starts on the left. We are shifting left, so the left is appropriate here. On your local workstation, you're going to create and test policies. You're going to iterate on those policies over and over again and test them and make sure they work, again, totally on your local workstation. Where it's the cheapest, these are going to be not just infrastructure policies as you have done previously with Chef Infra, but now these are going to be compliance and security policies as well. So you're going to make sure before you bring anything into production that it's secure, before you even actually get it off your laptop, that it's secure. It's going to meet all your business's requirements. Once we have that in some state that you think is ready, push it up through a CI pipeline, and you'll push it into Chef Infra server, and that'll pull it down on all your different servers. Those are maybe servers in the cloud, servers that are on-prem, edge devices, devices in retail stores, point of sale systems and whatnot. Those all bring down that policy. Those will execute that infrastructure policy, make sure those systems look the way you want them to look, and then they'll run through that security and compliance requirement as well. They'll take the results of both of those, all the infrastructure changes that were made, all the security and compliance state of that system, and they'll push that up where we can continuously report and trigger any workflows on that. That's in our automate tool. This is kind of that single pane of glass that was talked about earlier. You can go in, you can view the state, you can see what your infrastructure looks like, you can see what your compliance posture, your security posture looks like, and you can also push that up into other workflows because we don't want to lock your data in. We want to make sure that you can get these into the existing workflows you already have in your business. There's some really great advantages to taking an iterative approach to this and building on everything we know works with infrastructure as code. The first is that we're getting that same collaborative win we got when we broke down the silos between our dev teams and our ops teams, but now we're bringing our compliance and security teams in as well. We know that working through code, having PRs, not having meetings, not having JIRA tickets, not having big change review boards, that's a great way to collaborate. It gets teams to stop seeing each other as enemies and to start seeing each other as partners. They're all working the same code base together. From that, we get a lot of great scalability. Not scalability the way you might think of with a product. We're not talking about, number of IOPS and whatnot, but this is process scalability. Manual processes, manual tickets, they just don't scale. There's no way to scale those into a high velocity business. You can't be deploying 100 times a day. If everything has to go through a change review board, getting that into an automated process, being able to do that through CI systems and checks and scans, in automated process that we enable with our compliance tooling really enables you to have that high velocity business. A big part of that is also shifting left. We want to make sure that all those security concerns get tackled on your workstation, right? As I'm developing a new part of infrastructure code, as I'm pushing out maybe a new Nginx update, building out a web service, I want to make sure that system is secure at that same time. I should be checking the CIS hardening of that system while I do my development. Not when it goes to a staging environment, certainly not when it goes to production. That's the last place we want to catch these things. It's the most expensive place to catch them. So we're going to catch those on our local workstations while we develop. And through that, we get continuous visibility. It's really great to be able to see that security posture and that compliance posture while we're developing on our local workstation, in our CI pipelines before things go even to a development or a staging environment, and certainly seeing that security posture of our production environment at all times. We can report that, we can see that and automate, we can build that into our CI pipelines, but we can also get that into third parties from automate. So if we want to report that up into some other business system, we can definitely execute that through and have that continuous visibility into what our environment looks like. One of the really great advantages that we think we have over a lot of other products in the market is really the integrated solution. We're taking two really powerful standalone tools and we're bringing them together in a way that they really work, not as standalone tools, but now as just an integrated solution. On the left here, we have Chef Infrastructure Management, the traditional Chef product. This is a secure agent-based infrastructure management tool. Powerful and extensible language that we give you and 170 built-in resources. On the right is our Chef Compliance Management tool that's built on the Inspect product. That is a security and compliance framework, again, on a secure agent-based tool. It also has a powerful and extendable auditing language. And the key there being extendable, this isn't something where you're just able to apply a CIS profile. If you need to write your own security posture, your own security rules for your business, you can enforce that entirely with this product. You can build your own resources, but we're giving you 500 resources out of the box. I think that number might be wrong. We might actually be at 600 at this point. The team is just rapid firing more resources into the product, making it more and more capable. We're bringing those products together, and this is something we've done recently. This started with the launch of Chef Infra Client 17. We now have the infra phase and the compliance phase. This allows us to use a single agent deployment and really get some great advantages from that. Single workflows, single pipelines, and execute our infrastructure changes. Those are going to come through recipes, through resources, through attributes, and then execute that compliance phase where we go through and we look at the compliance and the security posture of the system. That's executing inspect profiles, controls, waivers, inputs, and these all come together again in a single agent, a single workflow, single pipelines. There's some great advantages of doing this way. First, we have that shared testing language that is Inspect. We've already been using Inspect on the infra side for testing the how our cookbooks run, how our infrastructure looks. Now we're using that for compliance as well. That means we've got teams that are already familiar with this. Our DevOps teams already know how to use Inspect. They can help out our security and compliance teams as they move into that. But those teams can kind of cross-pollinate knowledge between the two because they're all using that single tool with that single language. There's no new clients to deploy for this. There's no new pipelines to deploy for this. This works with existing infrastructure setups. And that really gives us a nice simplified path to production, right? We don't have some sort of infrastructure deployment where we have to then, kick off Jira tickets or do something with another workflow, all going through a single tool, through a single pipeline. We also get some fantastic power in this as well, not just simplicity. We get the power of policy files to really send immutable changes through our environments, including immutable policy in regards to compliance and security. And we get all the great advantages we got before with our infrastructure with testing. So we have cook style for linting. We have test kitchen to run through full smoke tests of every change. So somebody on their local workstation now can actually spin up, say, a RHEL 8 box. They can run through a CIS profile. They can do those Nginx changes, and they can see it all on their local workstation. They can see not just that infrastructure change, but also how the compliance posture changes as they go and make changes to the Nginx config. We think there's some great advantages to bringing this together into that single pipeline, doing this all as a single artifact. Again, we're shifting our security concerns. We're really bundling a single artifact and developing a single artifact where we can have developers, security teams, everyone working on the compliance and security posture of our products as they're being developed. This isn't a thing that happens after the fact. We're not scanning systems after they've already gone to production. As we're developing infrastructure cookbooks, we're going to be making sure that those things are secure. We also get some great enhancements to kind of how security and compliance teams operate. The same things we got with the DevOps movement, bringing in development principles to our operations staff, getting them into things like code review, continuous integration, continuous deployment. We can do those same things with our security teams. Now we have simple things like versioned artifacts, the ability to actually do rolling releases, fantastic new kind of development ideas brought into the security world as well. And again, all through the same pipeline. So we have our DevOps teams that can really just help these teams as they come into these new processes. I did mention that we really think one of the greatest things we have in terms of this product, in terms of the safety of it, is the idea of safely promoting items with policy files. If you're not familiar with policy files are a way that we take all of our dependencies and we lock them in a mutable object. Every single file in there has a SHA to it, and you're not changing things as other teams make changes to the infrastructure as they upload maybe a new cookbook or a new recipe. You're not going to have that change because you've locked this object. It's a really great way to know the thing that you're executing on your local workstation is the same thing that you're going to be executing in a development or staging environment, and certainly the same thing you're executing in production. And we kind of think of it as a container, almost a container promotion, but this container is that policy container. That's all going up through a cookbook. Those have infrastructure changes in them, as Chef has always had, but now we also have our inspect profiles directly in that cookbook container, wrapped in that policy file and done in a mutable way. So if you want to make a compliance change or a new security check, you know that you can securely take that through all your different environments, locally develop it, check it in CI, promote it to dev or staging, and take it into production. And know that if someone goes and changes other things in your environment, that code isn't going to change. You'll always execute that same code. So this is really kind of a key part of how this pipeline works. And with that, I'm going to hand it back and we can talk a little bit about the summary.
Sure. Thank you, Tim. Yeah. So basically, to summarize, as I mentioned, Chef Compliance provides you with premium content for CIs and STIG, helps you seamlessly translate your PDF-based rules to programmatic content. Our premium content also has tons of addition coming in from the community. You also get to customize them as per your organization rules through our policy as code approach. In addition, we also, through Chef Inspect, you can also shift left seamlessly. You can enable a test-driven development for your infrastructure and application testing. Next slide, please. And not only do we just provide premium content, we in fact provide you a full cycle in terms of our Chef Compliance automation. We enable you to take the premium content that we provide, choose what you need, waive off what is really not appropriate for you at a particular point of time, customize the content that we have provided through the policy as code approach. In that way, you actually are setting a baseline for your organization target system, and you can continuously evaluate that particular baseline. And whenever there is a deviation in terms of the baseline, you can remediate the controls using the Chef infra, and you can have a continuous approach to continuously reevaluate your particular cycle. And take all of that, take all of the results that you have into any of the third-party tools, and you can use it for auditing purposes. You can also generally use it for integration with any other systems, and use it for other purposes also. Next slide, please. We also encourage you to subscribe to our discourse channel. It's discourse.chef.io, and you can be notified about everything latest which is happening on Chef. To give a glimpse, we recently made a bunch of releases with respect to a bunch of cloud resources that we added for both Azure as well as AWS. And with that, we can take up any questions that you may have at this point of time.
Do you have any good questions, Heather?
Awesome. There's questions. There's always questions.
There's
How
always
could there not be
questions.
questions, right? So just to remind everyone out there, if you have questions, please go ahead and type them into either the chat or the Q&A, and we'll go ahead and address them to Sharon and Tim. One of the first questions we received is there a common developer platform for using infra and inspect together?
Yeah, there's definitely a common platform. That's kind of one of the killer features of bringing this together is an integrated experience. You're shipping your inspect profiles, those waivers, the inputs, everything that makes up any custom security or compliance content you want to deploy. You're shipping that directly in a cookbook. So if you wanted to develop a cookbook, you would write recipes, write resources. You would run things like cook style to lint it. You would run things like test kitchen to test it on like a RHEL box or an Ubuntu box. Now you're going to get that exact same experience with inspect. It's all in the same piece of content. It's all that same cookbook that has everything inside of it. So when you go through and you run test kitchen, you're going to run that infra phase. You're going to, like I was saying, lay down Nginx with a config and some web app that you have. And now you're going to run the compliance phase as well as part of that. So while you go through that testing that you've always done for the infra product, now you'll also get to see what that compliance posture looks like. And you can make that fail, right? And that's the ideal part of this, is that you go through those same development process you always had. And now you see, oh, hey, I broke the security posture of this system. So I have to make some changes. Maybe I need to set some new headers on my Nginx config so that I can meet some CIS profile that I need.
So we have a couple more questions coming in along these same lines. The next one is, I'm not sure if that answered your question or not, Thomas, but I'll ask our presenters, how would you implement this without having to put in an overlay between teams?
Yeah, I mean, kind of the nice thing you get, and I think Sharon can speak a little bit more to this, is there's that great jumping point that you get. There's a lot of products out there that kind of give you the ability to do CIS scanning. I'm not going to lie, like that is a thing that other people do. The really killer part that I think that we offer there is the ability to have actual customizable content. Anyone can apply that scanning. If we want to run a CIS profile, any team, the security team can easily set that to be a part of all these development processes. And if they want to write additional content, they can either write that directly in the application cookbooks, directly with an infra team, or they can write that as a standalone cookbook. Nothing stops you from just having standalone content that your security team is fully responsible for. It sits in a totally different repo. If you need the silo for business reasons, and there's certainly people who have business requirements to have kind of a more siloed environment, you can absolutely have that if you want. So those teams can go and apply content independently, and they can write content independently. But that ability to customize that content, I think, is our absolute killer feature, because it's not just about CIS content, right? At some point, your business is going to have a requirement that I need this certain security policy set on all of our systems, and you want to be able to do that, and you can do that with the inspect language, which is kind of the killer feature.
Great. The next question from Benjamin: how is remediation done against nodes that are non-compliant?
You want to take that one?
Sharon?
Yeah, sure. So what basically, what you can do, as I mentioned, if you have a bunch of nodes, wherein you feel that, there are certain issues in terms of the configuration, we provide a bunch of remediation cookbooks, as part of a remediation content. There is also a supermarket where you can get a bunch of content, wherein, a lot of community folks have helped with the remediation aspects. What the remediation cookbooks basically do is, they go and kind of generally look for the configurations, and they kind of set it to the configuration that as per the CIS benchmarks. You can also generally, take in those remediation cookbooks, you can make certain changes, and you can rerun that particular content or that remediation cookbook. So you can tune the cookbooks to, modify only certain part of the configuration, so that you don't, change those aspects which are not required to be changed. So, you also get a very customizable remediation cookbook, which looks at setting the configuration of the system based on what CIS deems to be the appropriate ones, and ensure system hardening.
Cool. I think we've got more questions coming in. This is a popular topic, looks like. Next question from Santosh: what is the difference between Chef Infra and Automate? I don't know which one of you want to take that first.
Yeah, I can speak a little bit to Chef Infra and Automate. So really, when we talk about infra, we're talking about a capability within the whole product line, right? We talk about infra, we talk about compliance. Automate is that reporting layer that sits above it all. It kicks off the workflows. It allows you to log in and see what your infrastructure changes that are happening are. It lets you see what your compliance posture is. And now with infra views, it lets you log in and actually make some of the changes that you would have previously made with our Chef Manage UI. So that's really kind of the control plane and the viewing portion of the whole product line. But it's not, they're not a competing product, right? It's just a capability, I would say, of the product.
There's another question here. Sharon, this one might be for you. Where do you get the CIS profiles?
Sure. So what we've done is we have, kind of generally bundled a lot, a bunch of the CIS content within Chef Automate. So within Chef Automate, you have a Chef Compliance, tab, and within the Chef Compliance tab, you have profiles, and within the profiles, you have a bunch of the profiles that we support. What you can do is you can choose the relevant ones. Like, for example, if you have a Red Hat Linux, and on top of it, you have Oracle or Oracle database, you have certain middleware and certain applications. You can choose the specific profiles relevant to you, and you can actually generally, choose your particular target systems. I'm assuming that you would have had certain nodes configured within your environment. So you can actually generally run scan jobs on top of those nodes using these profiles. And you can also generally do it on a scheduled basis. You can set it for every day, or maybe every alternate day, or every week, or monthly, or bi-weekly timeframes as you require. So you get a very continuous report on what is happening with your node environment, and you get a continuous posture check on whether your nodes are in line with the CIS. So the short answer to that is through Chef Automate, you get a bunch of these particular content. And we also have a lot of the content which are provided from from our community friends. So a lot of those particular content can also be uploaded on Chef Automate, and you can apply those on your nodes or on your target systems.
Great. I think that might have answered the next question we had, which I'm going to try to rephrase this one, which was about how can you kind of control when scans run so that you don't have, systems running the same compliance checks over and over again.
I think we touched upon the first part of that. You can definitely run these scans as part of every Chef Infra client run. You can configure that with that compliance phase and really bring that as part of the development cycle. And that would be, if you're running Chef client every 30 minutes, You're going to get an infrastructure converge every 30 minutes. You're going to get a compliance check every 30 minutes. You can also do one-off scans, like we were talking about just now. If you want to go in the UI and apply a CS profile to a certain number of nodes, you can do that there. But the other opportunity you get is to set a less frequent compliance scan within the Chef Infra client. If you don't want that running every 30 minutes, sometimes some of the compliance checks are pretty resource intensive, especially on Windows. Checking those every 30 minutes, that puts increased load on your systems. You can set that to a less frequent schedule. So if that's something where you say, hey, our business is really concerned with making sure that once a day we have a compliance scan done, that's fine for our needs. We used to do a once a quarter audit. Once a day sounds great. You can set that to run once a day, and you'll just get a once a day scan.
Great. So I know we covered, here's the next one. We covered using compliance phase to kind of configure and validate. Can you also use pretty much the same cookbook to scan and remediate?
Yeah, totally. I mean, that's kind of the cool thing you get with being able to have the infrastructure code right in there. The infrastructure code is the thing that actually makes the change on the system. So if you want to use, if you want a security team that's in charge of detecting issues and correcting them, you can certainly put that all in the same place, right? If for instance, you need to know that you have a firewall enabled, and you need to know that you have certain SSL protocols disabled on web servers, you can absolutely remediate that right in a cookbook, and then have compliance profiles, have any custom security rules you want written right there, bundled in that cookbook that executes every time Chef runs, or again, whatever schedule you choose.
Awesome. I don't see any more questions. And by the way, my name is Heather Payton. I'm on the marketing side, as I just kind of popped in here as the webinar lurker. But also want to mention, if you want to know more about compliance phase and what's going on with it, Tim's going to be back this week with Dan Webb, I think on Thursday, right? Doing a session. So we'll go a little bit more hands-on with a demo on that session. We also have DevRel streams on Twitch, which are really kind of hands-on sessions. So if you want to really kind of see automate working with, InSpec and building profiles, those are great opportunities to kind of get a closer look at the product and ask questions to our DevRel team. So with that, I don't see any more questions. I don't know, Sharon, Tim, did you have any kind of closing comments?
Nope.
Okay. Great.
Thanks for coming, everybody. Again, we'll be back on Thursday. That's going to be a bit more deep dive into kind of what's new. So if you've seen compliance phase, if you saw like our Chef Infra 17 launch, this is going to talk a lot more about the new ability to bring that compliance content right into the cookbook, how you bundle that, how you bring it into a single pipeline. And Dan's going to show off what that looks like as you push one of those changes out and see it show up right in Automate. So it should be a pretty cool demo.
Great. And with that, again, we apologize for the audio problems, and thank you all for sticking with us. And, feel free to follow up with any other questions we have. And everyone have a great day, great night. Thanks. Alina, we can go ahead and close the call.
Yep.